studio with me. Morning.
Good morning.
Oh,
position, which took
with his sound quality.
Got an echo.
That we have around the show.
showing communities what's impacting them. So support the sessions that we run, but it's also about how the volunteers are able to grow themselves. And I think once you get the community on board and then invested in what's impacting them, you get a better results, really, because they're able to share information that possibly is not really out there to share. Because it's interesting when you mentioned about COVID, it's also had a negative impact on some families because of the isolation, because children do have some social anxiety levels that we found when going into school, etc. Also, I had a grandbaby during lockdown, and fortunately they had me as a grandmother, so my background came in handy in terms of making sure that everything went as smoothly as it can. But it also highlighted the levels of anxiety and quite a lot of depression at the time. So the community got involved, particularly around the dads group, was when we started off, we had to secure funding because I'm not sure many people are aware that we had over 32 children's centres which were all closed due to funding because of COVID ultimately, and we're funded by the airport, etc. So we had to source funding and carry on in some sort of arena, because we know that early years is important and a valid reason to have a service like Flying Start as a strategy. So we had what we call the name, or co-production, I should say, which is quite an unfriendly term. We decided to call it the Working Together Group, which we invited people from the community and professionals to come together and ask what is it that we could put in place that we could help further the community. And there was an overall consensus that we needed a dads group. So that's how dads group was formed, really. It came out of the need of the community saying we'd love to have a dads group. Ash, I met Ash in his formal capacity as a senior lecturer at the University of Bedfordshire. He came along to look at placements for some of his students, and ultimately once I grab you and say I need you as a volunteer, he hook, line and sink. He came along, and he has been inspirational alongside Selwyn, who is our other lead male volunteer as well. And I'd say we've been doing this now 2-3 years, and we've watched it grow in terms of being a positive, hearing conversations that are now coming out about what dads feel about being a part of this partnership thing called being a parent. So for Ash, his experience, his knowledge base has enabled us to grow in strength and think about how is this helping dads.
And I believe, morning Ash, can you hear us? Oh, he should. I did hear Ash, so I'm not sure if he could hear us. Ash, are you able to hear me? Nope, he's blank, so I'm not sure if Ash can hear us at all. So he's joined the show. And Ash, can you give me a wave so I know that you can hear me? Can you is your mic working? Okay, so Ash, welcome to the show.
Hello, Ash.
Morning. Technology is marvelous when it works.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic.
I'm great. I'm really pleased to have you join the show because you have a pivotal role in today's show. So, Ash, firstly, welcome to Mother's Planet, and I'm glad that we could overlook these technical issues and actually get you to join on. So, Ash, can I just get you to briefly introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yeah, hi. My name is Ash McCormack. Principally, I'm a lecturer at the University of Bedfordshire, and I teach on the Childhood and Youth Studies degree course. But I've been involved with the dads group through Flying Start for about 2 or 3 years now. Initially, I went down looking for kind of places for our students to get involved with. And so Sharon mentioned that there was a dads group, and it was quite difficult recruiting men to volunteer to help run it. So yeah, so several years later, I'm still here and I'm still participating.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I guess it's really fantastic because you obviously have experience as a father yourself. So you can share your knowledge and experience in that field, and it makes it a bit more real. So those fathers that are attending these sessions, they're not just getting somebody that's, got an educational hat in the field. They've actually got somebody that's in the field of best of both. So, you're a dad and you have the expertise through your experience as well for what you do. So you come from a childhood and youth studies background.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
So what do you think are the long-term effects when dads aren't really actively involved in the early parenting support?
I think, look, across the course, this isn't about sort of saying, but it's difficult for dads because it's easier for mothers. It certainly isn't. But I think as a society, we don't necessarily make it easy for any parent, particularly in those early days. One of the things I think which is challenging for the dads is they're not given the time or space to grow into that role and develop that relationship. So, for example, we have really, really poor paternity leave. So in those crucial last few months before the baby arrives and the first 6 months afterwards, there's a lot of ambivalence, uncertainty, anxiety around the dad's role. So I think what we tend to see is that as everyone else is getting busy doing the parenting role, sometimes dads are just a little bit in the background, wondering what they can do, possibly hoping to not get in the way and not get it wrong.
Yeah.
And so I think that what ideally any relationship is that you grow with your children. I think that sometimes because life throws up all sorts of bumps in the road, sometimes I think the participation from the dads tends to drift away from where it could be because other things happen to kind of become prioritized, earning a living, for example, or just other things that happen. So I think from a male perspective, and perhaps there's some masculinity tied into this, is that I think that if we're not actively involved very early on, we hope that it gets easier as the children grow older, because we can communicate more effectively, hopefully, about what our role is and what their needs might be. And I think that very, very early on, if we misstep by even a couple of degrees, the past may risk just delineating slightly away from where we could be, but actively more involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on so many points there about, the key roles that fathers have there and obviously, the constraints that fathers have in and being part of that. And I know very recently my cousin became a dad for the first time, and he managed to accumulate some of his holidays so that when he had his firstborn, he was able to take the statutory paternity leave. But I think his company, and I think a lot of companies are looking into this now, gave him a month off. So he was able to take 4 weeks, and it was his choice whether to do it in one go, 4 weeks, or take 2 weeks off and then come back to work and then take another 2 weeks off somewhere else. But he managed to accumulate some of his holidays. So he's actually taken, I think, 3 months off where he's been able to, really spend that time. And he's been such a pivotal role in helping his wife, because, it's the first time from her side of the family a baby's been born, but his side, I mean, his sisters have all got children, so he's well experienced, well equipped. But for her it was quite daunting, didn't know what to do. So he was able to sort of really step in. So I'm going to talk a bit about the support group, because I know that is it yourself that's just heading up the support group, or do you have somebody with you?
Oh, no, certainly. I mean, Sharon is sort of the brains behind the outfit. Myself, and Selwyn Baptiste are the guys that get involved and try to bring that sort of male human element to, and hopefully some relatability in developing those. Because what we know, that men typically aren't very good at talking about things that matter in any kind of meaningful way. So perhaps we're just the conduit. We're just the opportunity to open up and discuss things.
So Sharon, just to refer the question to you about, we've got Flying Start offers lots of support sessions for new mums. So what makes this group different, other than the fact that there's dads attending it? What makes this session very different than the focus that's given to mums?
Yeah, it's an interesting question, and we get asked that quite a lot. I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of what it means to become a dad. Our systems are not created to include dads. So from an equality basis, it's looking at what a male parent needs versus what a female parent needs. And I know it sounds really obscure because in some part of the relation there's the two of you coming together to become a parent. But what we've realized, and it's like everything else in any early years development, it's about progression, it's about research, lots of research coming out as to what's happening to dads at that particular point in time. So we then think, okay, so we do have to run a dad's group. We do need to address the needs of what's coming out and what's happening to dads and the questions they want to ask, whereas they may not feel comfortable. And I always tell the story about becoming a grandmother for my son, and not technically for him, but he became a parent during COVID, and I remember him at the end of the phone in tears because of how he was treated by our system, which i.e. was our midwives, our health visitors, etc., which was one of an exclusion rather than inclusion. So it was a case of, there is something going on here. There is something that men are suffering as well. And it does show, and I think Ash has probably got the statistics around that, in terms of what happens at that pivotal point when you become a dad. Relationships are very tough. Suddenly this person has come into their lives, a baby, and it creates all sorts of fractures. One of, trying to maintain a relationship, trying to maintain that you're now called this dad, but you have all of these support mechanisms for a woman who may be going through postnatal, but we recognise that. We don't recognise that men also go through a stage of depression once they've had this child. So those are the types of conversations that will come out in a dad's group, and they feel safe to have those discussions. And even though some of it, so obviously I organise the dad's group, but we make sure the male leads are there to hear these stories. And then we have our community link workers who have the background and experience to talk about certain aspects of that.
So listeners, we are going to be actually heading over to a short commercial break. Believe it or not, we've actually come to the first half of the show, and I feel that Ash has only just joined the show. But Ash, I'm going to gear the questions to you just to for the listeners to after the break, if you could just walk us through a typical session, what goes on, just so those that are tuned in this morning can actually hear what happens, and hopefully you can put your experience into that. But listeners, for now, we are heading over to a short commercial break, so join us after the break. Assalamu alaikum.
This program will continue after the break. Continue listening to Inspire FM. Inspire FM. Inspire 105.1 FM.
Hot weather ahead, stay cool and hydrated. Drinking water is your best defense against the heat. Keep a bottle with you wherever you go and sip it all day long. If you're out in the sun, try water-rich foods like cucumbers and melons. Remember, the more you hydrate, the better you'll feel.
Enjoy quality and tasty 100% authentic halal Chinese and Thai food from Gao Express. Brought to you by the team behind Top's Pizza in Luton. Choose from all your delicious Chinese and Thai favourites. Then order for delivery or collection from Gao Express in Wellington Street, Luton, Marketplace, Stevenage, and now also on Nightingale Road in Hitchin. Open daily midday till late. Find the number or order online at Gao, that's GAO, express.co.uk, or like Gao Express on Facebook.
वेस्टबोर्न फार्मेसी हफ्ते के 7 दिन सुबह 9 बजे से लेकर रात 9 बजे तक खुली रहती है। हमारी सर्विसेज में शामिल हैं ट्रैवल वैक्सीनेशंस, स्टॉप स्मोकिंग, डायबिटीज चेक, बच्चों की ग़िज़ा और बहुत कुछ। लुटन और डंस्टेबल में फ्री प्रिस्क्रिप्शन, पिकअप और डिलीवरी सर्विसेज भी की जाती है। इसके अलावा आप मेडिसिन के इस्तेमाल के लिए फ्री मशवरा भी ले सकते हैं। वेस्टबोर्न फार्मेसी 198 B Dunstable Road, Luton, corner of Westbourne Road. Telephone 01582 419 432.
The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the most blessed nikah, marriage ceremony, is the one with the least expense spent on it.
Career power is walking into an interview and knowing you've got the skills, the experience, the edge. How do you get it? Come to a University of Bedfordshire Open Day, where we'll show you our real-world teaching and industry-led courses in action, introduce you to our industry partners and our supportive community that's got your back from day one through to graduation and beyond. Want career-powered education? Book onto a University of Bedfordshire Open Day now at beds.ac.uk.
Are you looking for a prompt let and comprehensive property management by property professionals? If so, relax and let a safe registered agent take care of all your property matters. Marigold Residentials believe in 100% customer satisfaction and aim to provide quality service at very competitive prices. Why not also let us take care of your property sale? We're now a proud member of the National Association of Estate Agents. We also advertise in local papers free of charge. Visit us at 251 Dunstable Road or call us on 617 617. Terms and conditions apply.
माजी हाल मुस्तकबिल की बातों के सुराग इल्मी अदबी अफसाना शायरी और जिंदगी के राज हवा की लहरों से बन के आवाज ये है प्रोग्राम चराग पेश किया जा रहा है हर जुमा शाम 7 से 8।
From the studios of Inspire FM, the time is now 10:30.
Good morning and assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Mother's Planet. It's Friday, 20th of June, and the time has now just gone 10:30. I am your host, Neelum, and joining me on the show this morning are my guests, Ash and Sharon. Morning, guys.
Morning.
Morning.
Right, now, Ash, we had some technical issues with Ash joining us in the early part of the show. So I'm going to be devoting some of my attention all over to you now, mostly. Sorry, Sharon.
No, that's absolutely fine.
But we're going to leave Sharon out of this little bit now. But Ash, I just earlier in the show, just before we went over to the break, I wanted to sort of get an understanding about how these sessions are run, just for those parents that are tuned in this morning that are thinking, like myself, that didn't know such groups existed. So can you just run us through, a typical session? What happens?
It's fairly low key. We try to recognise that there are ongoing and regular concerns. Some are newsworthy, some are media driven, things like men's mental health, for example. So we will kind of have a sort of tagline, which perhaps.
No, he's gone. And he was saying some really valid stuff there, but it looked like his internet cut out there, so I'm not quite sure where he's gone. Yep, he's disappeared. Oh, we are not having fun with the technical side of the show today. And so, listeners, that he will be back. I believe it was just an internet issue there for himself. So I will get. Yes, it was the technical team have said it was an internet issue. So,
right.
Okay. As soon as he's got some internet there, he'll be able to rejoin us back. I guess we've asked you how this. Sessions make it different. Doing there's often this long held idea that mums naturally take the lead when it comes to the early days of taking care of the baby. I mean I remember from my own early days of motherhood, I did feel sort of like I maybe pushed my husband aside because I felt like, you won't understand, you won't know. And I thought that maternal instinct only kicked in with me. And, you know, and even culturally and socially, it was more that you should know what you're doing because you're the mum.
Yeah.
So, you know, how are you encouraging this shift in that mindset, you know, and bringing the fathers in without treading on anyone's toes, you know, taking away any of those cultural beliefs?
No, well, you know, it really isn't about changing the dynamics because, you know, by default, females give birth. And there is this assumption that we naturally will know how to change a nappy. We will know how to automatically latch a baby onto the breast. And that isn't always the truth. You know, some women do find it hard to be maternal. And I've seen that in my experience of working in early years for the longevity of how long I've worked in early years. You know, and I've seen the horror when someone wanted to put their child with a childminder at 6 weeks. And she clearly said, I'm not maternal. I don't, you know, I have to give birth, but I don't want to be around my child. I want to be a career woman. And you kind of have to value and respect that. So then you think to yourself, well, how does the dad feature in this role? I do call someone's name, which is Elliot Ray. He did a wonderful documentary which was featured by the BBC all about that journey for men in terms of what it means to become a dad and how he felt. And he actually was diagnosed with perinatal mental health, changed career completely to be a part of this journey of understanding the impact it has on becoming a dad. So I think the more we become, you know, the necessity to work and two parents are going out to work, it is looking at the redress of how we balance parenthood. Culturally, yes, we want to hold on to some aspects of what that means. And Ash talks really well about the dual role and the double whammy that women sometimes have to play, because you are expected to be the mum, you are expected to go back to work, you are expected to do quite a lot of things. And it has shown from research that women still are the ones that tend to be lumbered with a lot of things. I think if we can get round to understanding of some of the impact of what happens to men when they become a parent and the responsibilities on them, because we forget that there is a pressure on them because they then become the provider, the person that has to then tune into what's going on to his partner, his wife, whatever. So there is an undisclosed issue that is happening for men, because we have changed and we have evolved, maybe for the better, maybe not, we don't know. But the point being, so much research, particularly around when dads are involved with their children, the outcomes can be very, very different, particularly around reading, particularly around socialization and bonding, really. So there's a lot to be talked about on that. I'm not the expert in terms of the research side of it, but I can see the difference, what it makes when a man is involved.
No, I think Ash has lost internet connection, so
completely.
We have not been able to reach out to him, and I believe that he hasn't been able to communicate via email. So I'm assuming he's in out of zone area, so he probably can't reach out to us. So listeners, if you have just tuned into the show this morning, where have you been? I do apologize for those that are tuned in this morning for the technical glitches that we are having with the show, but that's the reliability of internet. You know, you think you've mastered it, but it will always come out and surprise you. So I am joined by Sharon and hopefully Ash this morning, and we are talking about the pivotal role that fathers play in supporting mums when it comes to early years of parenthood. Now, Sharon, I know that Ash would understand, you know, the discussion that goes on, the statistics and everything around it, but you are also in the sessions when they do happen?
More or less, I'm running around and making sure the building's safe, making sure that we've set up appropriate resources, etc. Because The outcomes are the same for any session.
Mhm.
It's about what we put out for child development, engagement, etc. But it's also about capturing those voices. So as I said, it's also supported by at least 2 community link workers who are trained in parenting, who are trained in so many aspects of what we do as Flying Start. So some of the conversations, and believe it or not, we've even had conversations around a dad saying, how do I support my wife with breastfeeding? And the ins and outs of it in terms of what that means for a woman to be going through and latching and stuff. And those conversations were flowing quite naturally. We've had a male midwife with his 6-week-old baby attend the sessions, which was really great to see, because again, it's about how systems change. And I think the more we have male workers in early years, more male workers in midwifery, more male workers in the healthcare system. And even when you look at statistically from early years right through to primary school, we're surrounded by quite a number of females. And then they go off into secondary school and the dynamics change. You see more male teachers, etc., in that environment. So then we ask ourselves, what's going on then? Why is this particular profession not attractive? And one of the reasons we do know, which is quite political, is that it's female dominated, so therefore the pay reflects that. So we then have to look at, if the fact is, if we started getting more male input into some of these environments, the system would change and pay will change, and to a degree you'll get a different outcome. So it's quite, I'm not the best way to describe, but it's really looking at the group and saying to the group, you can be a part of your child's change and development.
And I guess, you know, having that early on involvement also prevents, you know, because sometimes you know, mums will strive and go through the early years and do whatever they have to do to raise that child, and the child will get to maybe 2 or 3 when they're about to start nursery, and it's quite a, you know, important part of their life where you have to make that decision about where do we put them, how do we, you know, what's the education going to look like for this child. And then the father steps in and it's like, well, you've missed out on all this time and now you're stepping in and you don't really know the child as well. So it can, and you know, and I liked how you touched on the fact that, and this is, you know, and I wish Ash was here because he could probably give us some statistics around it, but yes, you know, I'm sure when a baby is born, especially if it's your first child, the impact that has on the marriage itself, because it's like, what role do you fit in now? Especially as a father, you know, you are, you know, the breadwinner, you are the one that goes out to work to put a roof over the family's head. But, you know, now women have, you know, equally got that role in them as well. And as you said, there was the lady that, you know, wanted to become a professional rather than become a mum. And so, you know, it's finding that balance. So in the sessions, the dads bring the babies with them?
Absolutely. And amazing to watch. And you try not to go into default mode of saying, do you want a hand? Or you watch them try and navigate changing nappies, and it is wonderful to watch. And we and Ash would testify, because we try and make sure that they have the interaction with the dads. We kind of, as females, stay to one side. But it's amazing to watch in terms of the engagement with play and understanding. So the themes that we have, we used to put it up of what each theme is at each session, but I've taken that away now and just say come along. But we have the themes there, so we put up a lot of information around in terms of looking at men's mental health, for example, or we may have a theme. A lot of conversations is around SEND, which is special educational needs and disabilities, but a lot of questions are asked that I don't think my child is meeting his expected goals, etc. Those kind of conversations come up. And then I make sure, if we've got that particular theme happening, that our champions, who is an SEN lead, is there to answer those questions at that session. Or it might be about transitions, and as you said, choosing nurseries. Then what happens after nursery? We go into schools. We've had lots of questions, because I think a lot of the questions are directed to the mum, and the dads are saying, well, I don't think it works like that. And we're able to say, no, it does work. And you are eligible, basically, to do certain things. So it's very informative, lots of conversations, but also lots of engagement with their children, watching them play together. And sharing. I've got lots of lovely group photos of them just standing and sharing with each other what's happening to them becoming a dad.
No, I mean, it's lovely to see. And I believe Ash has joined us back. Hi,
Oh,
Ash. Hopefully you've got a bit more stable internet now. Sorry, Ash. Can you hear us? I'm just waiting for Ash to give us the thumbs up on his sound quality there. Ash, can you hear us? I believe he can see me but not hear me again, so I'm not sure what's happening there. The question I wanted to ask Ash was around some more statistics. So obviously with the parents taking the babies away and having these sessions, that means mums have a break.
And that's how we promote it.
Yes.
So, it's quite funny to watch. When we first started the group, the mums would turn up with the dads. And we've had instances where I've said, okay, you can sit in the office. They're going to play. And they look at me and say, oh. And then they got into the swing of saying, right, or if there is a mechanism that they're being dropped off, they drop off and off they go. And they've got that around 2 hours of time together with their child. But you can see the hesitation from mums when they're letting go, which is quite interesting to watch. But we've also seen little ones go into 3 years old, whatever, going off and doing this journey and having those wonderful conversations as we go along. But
that's lovely. So Ash, can you hear us? Ash, can you hear me? I can see him looking, but he's not responding, so I'm not sure if his sound is not connected. He's looking very spaced out into the space here. I'm not sure if Ash can hear us, so we
may have to do another show with Ash and his statistics.
Ash, and with all his statistics. So I mean, I guess the mums have their cup of tea, have that time out. And I guess from some of these sessions, conversations have stemmed around safety. And I know from my husband's experience, whenever I take him, usually when we do parents' evening, he's either at work on his way back and, it's timed such that he can't make it. But in the last few sessions that we've had, my husband's been there. And so he's come along to the parents' evening, and goodness me, I think I regret taking him sometimes. The questions that he asks, it's like, so how can we improve this, and how can we do this? I mean, a lot of them are very good questions, and I think I just go there and I nod my head and I think, yep, teacher's just telling me to do. But he's actually elaborated and said, okay, it's really interesting that you've told us that we need to do this, but can you expand on that? What do we need to do? And I think, oh, I didn't think of that question. So so it's quite nice having him on board as well. And I guess from some of these sessions that you've been running, questions have come around safety, around
so when normally towards the end of a session, when we're doing a sort of coming together, Ash goes into why the session was planned today and what the session was about, and we always ask what would be your interest. So it's a two-way process. It's not just us dictating what goes on, it's hearing what they want to know about. And one of the things came up around safeguarding, etc. Now Ash explains it really nicely in terms of safeguarding isn't just how we think safeguarding. We think about the extremes rather than what really we need to do in terms of keeping children safe, and understanding what safety is for children on different levels, really, but just about not just as parents but family engagement with the wider community, etc., keeping other children safe and having that conversation. So the NSPCC has kindly offered to do free training with their project, which is called Listen Up, Speak Up, Listen Up. One of those narratives around. And we said, great, let's try and put on a free training session, which is on a Saturday morning, the 12th of July. And it's exploring some of these questions around screen safety. And is he back?
Yes.
He can
Ash,
carry on,
back.
Ash.
Hi, Ash. So, I'm really sorry because we are cutting short on time. So I've just asked Sharon the question around the workshop that we're running on the 12th of July. and maybe you can give us some bit more detail about this workshop and how it came about. I think there's a lag with the internet, so he's hearing us, but he's hearing us much slower.
Slower, right.
Ash, can you hear us? Oh, I can see the frustration with him.
I know, he's going to be so gutted.
I know. I'm so sorry. Sorry. Can you hear us? No, it looks like he can't. So the session is run on the 12th of July.
Saturday, 12th of July, between 10 and 12.
Okay.
And it is taking out that time to come and explore and speak to the professionals as well. Ash is also there to kind of give some sort of context to it all as well. But it's not just for dads. It's a group that we run, which is for grandfathers who have with their children, you know, be as relatives, as you mentioned about your nephew or whoever's just become, you know, or your cousin has just become a parent, and it's about who else is involved. So we've had grandfathers come with their grandchildren, etc., and that's a lovely thing to see as well. So yeah, it is about sharing that information and asking people to come along to the training, which is at the Parktown Family Hub in Parktown. We call it Bailey Street, LU1 3DU.
I bet you got that postcode drilled in your head there. So
I have.
In terms of the workshop, who can attend? So it's mainly the
male relatives. Yeah. So it's a safe space for dads to, and we call it the dads group, obviously, but as we said, grandfathers, uncles, everyone attends.
And obviously no babies. It's just
no children at this one, because it is going to be sensitive questions, etc., exploring social media, those kinds of things, and the impact it has on children.
And I know that Ash has been coming on and off. I've been seeing him come on and off and join us, but he's not been able to
communicate,
hear us very well. So I think the internet, I think we'll have to just ride out the show without him, unfortunately, and maybe we will have to maybe do a post show after that, because I know that the sessions that are running for dads at the moment, the last session is,
so we have one next Saturday, June the 28th, and that one we're actually focusing on safe at home, which I believe you've had my colleagues in before. So again, everything we do is replicated for the dads. So that is really about how we keep home safe, etc., and getting support from that part of the organization, because that's the thing about Flying Start. We wear many hats within one organization, and that's what early years should look like. It should be about a holistic approach. So that's the 28th of June. The last one will be July the 19th. With the training of July the 12th in between.
Perfect. And these sessions that are run where dads can come along with the babies, is it bookable, or do they just turn up?
Do you know, it's a funny thing. All our sessions say bookable. And I think we probably get 2 dads that might book on. And then when we went on the day, we probably have 11 or 12 that turn up. And that's absolutely fine. We have the space, we have the capacity for it. And if I have to say the difference between organization, that shows the difference between women will book and the men will just turn up. So it's quite funny, actually. We're quite comical watching that.
And when we say bookable, where can they find this
so the best thing to do is always go onto our Flying Start website. All of our sessions are on there. All the information's on there, and you can either ring up or you can navigate the website and book on the website as well.
And I know, Sharon, that you have shared flyers with me around both the workshop and these drop-in sessions. So listeners, if you are tuned in this morning and you would like to know more information about that, just keep an eye out on the Inspire FM Facebook page connected to the show. All this information will be posted on there. Now, Sharon, I've got a bit of a question that's come through, and it's around. I know your forte is not around statistics and sociology, but I guess just looking at women and how the roles that we play in society, and are you seeing any difference with these workshops and with the dads getting involved now? Do you feel that's alleviating some of the pressures that these women feel? We have women that are working and are getting paid for it, and they're doing that shift, and then they're coming home, and then they have to do the unpaid
the other
domestic
shift, I
labor,
call it.
the one
other
that
shift
doesn't actually seem to end.
Mm,
And and they need to do that. But then you also have the emotional labor, where you have to be the parent that's dealing with relationships in the home, the moods in the home, telling the children how to deal with extended family members, or friendships. And so there's quite a lot to take in there. And do you feel that having dads involved in these sessions will alleviate some of that pressure?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I'm at the other spectrum of what I grew up with, as opposed to what's happening now and seeing change. So even if I look at the example of my son, very hands-on, very engaged, the young fathers that we have coming to the sessions, the conversations, I'm not doing it the way my parents did it. And that's and I'm saying this is from South Asian men. So when we talk about cultural shifts, and many of us come from very different backgrounds in terms of culture and what expectations are, but there's a reality that we live in a certain world where the role of work plays is quite fundamental in terms of expenses, etc., the cost of living, all those sorts of factors. Hearing them saying things, I'm not doing it that way, I want to be hands-on, observing, changing nappies, doing all of those sorts of things, because that's the biggie. Most people will say, oh, I'm not going to play with my child till he's about 2, 3, when he can talk, when he can kick a ball. But so much more happens before that, which is why our focus is the 1001 critical days, because so much change happens in that time when children are growing and developing. So in answer to that question, yes, there is a shift. Yes, there is a change. We've got a long way to go still, but the point is it's been recognised high up in terms of paternity leave. In all other avenues, yes, we still have to change the way we engage. And I put myself in that as a professional in early years, how we engage with dads. We need to be a bit more welcoming and less threatening. And that's the other factor as to why we don't have people in our profession, because there's a stereotype that goes with that in terms of thinking, and there's research around that, people are looked at with suspicion rather than actually embracing that. So I would say, yes, there's a shift.
There's a shift.
Yeah.
And we are down to the last 40 seconds of the show, so I just want to say, Sharon, apologies for all the technical glitches, and hopefully we will have to get Ash back on a show where he's probably got a bit more sound internet connection, or maybe live in the studio.
He'll have to come in.
We'll have to drag him into the studio. But Sharon, thank you so much.
You're more than welcome
for your time, and I wish you all the best for the workshop that's being run on the 12th.
And please come along.
Yes, I was just going to say, yes, listeners, it's these are very pivotal roles that dads have, and do join these workshops. All the information will be on the Facebook page. Friday blessings to everyone, and make sure you keep hydrated.